We will suppose, for the sake of illustrating how trade with the interior is managed, that the Arab conveys by his caravan $5,000 worth of goods into the interior. At Unyanyembe the goods are worth $10,000; at Ujiji they are worth $15,000. They have trebled in price. 5 doti, or $7.50, will purchase a slave in the markets of Ujiji that will fetch in Zanzibar $30. Ordinary men slaves may be purchased for $6, which would sell for 25 on the coast. We will say he purchases slaves to the full extent of his means, after deducting $1,500 expenses of carriage to Ujiji and back, viz. $3,500. The slaves, 464 in number, at $7.50 per head, would realize 13,920 at Zanzibar. Again, let us illustrate trade in ivory. A merchant takes $5,000 to Ujiji, and after deducting $1,500 for expenses to Ujiji and back to Zanzibar, has still remaining $3,500 in cloth and beads, with which he purchases ivory. At Ujiji ivory is bought at $20 the frazila, or £35, by which he is enabled with $3,500 to collect 175 frazilas, which, if good ivory, is worth about $60 per frazila at Zanzibar. The merchant thus finds that he has realized $10,500 net profit. Arab traders have often done better than this, but they almost always have come back with an enormous margin of profit. The next people to the Banyans in power in Zanzibar are the Mohammedan Hindis. Really, it has been a debatable subject in my mind whether the Hindis are not as wickedly determined to cheat in trade as the Banyans. But if I have conceded the palm to the latter, it has been done very reluctantly. This tribe of Indians can produce scores of unconscionable rascals where they can show but one honest merchant. One of the honestest among men, white or black, red or yellow, is a Mohammedan Hindi called Torya Topan. Amongst the Europeans at Zanzibar, he has become a proverb for honesty and strict business integrity. He is enormously wealthy, owns several ships and dhows, and is a prominent man in the councils of Said Berghash. Tarya has many children, 2 or 3 of whom are grown-up sons, whom he has reared up even as he is himself. But Tarya is but a representative of an exceedingly small minority. The Arabs, the Banyans, and the Mohammedan Hindis represent the higher and the middle classes. These classes own the estates, the ships, and the trade. To these classes bow the half-caste and the Negro. The next most important people who go to make up the mixed population of this island are the Negroes. They consist of the Aborigines, Wasawahili, Somalis, Comorines, Wanyamwezi, and a host of tribal representatives of Inner Africa. To a white stranger about penetrating Africa, it is a most interesting walk through the Negro quarters of the Wanyamwezi and the Waswahili. For here he begins to learn the necessity of admitting that Negroes are men, like himself, though of a different colour, that they have passions and prejudices, likes and dislikes, sympathies and antipathies, tastes and feelings, in common with all human nature. The sooner he perceives this fact, and adapts himself accordingly, the easier will be his journey among the several races of the interior. The more plastic his nature, the more prosperous will be his travels. Though I had lived some time among the Negroes of our Southern States, my education was Northern, and I had met in the United States black men whom I was proud to call friends. I was thus prepared to admit any black man, possessing the attributes of a true manhood or any good qualities, to my friendship, even to a brotherhood with myself, and to respect him for such, as if he were of my own colour and race. Neither his colour, nor any peculiarities of physiognomy should debar him with me from any rights he should fairly claim as a man. Have these men, these black savages from pagan Africa, I asked myself, the qualities which make man lovable among his fellows? Can these men, these barbarians, appreciate kindness or feel real resentment like myself? Was my mental question as I travelled through their quarters and observed their actions. Need I say that I was much comforted in observing that they were as ready to be influenced by passions, by loves and hates, as I was myself, that the keenest observation failed to detect any great difference between their nature and my own? The Negroes of the island probably number 2/3 of the entire population. They compose the working class, whether enslaved or free. Those enslaved perform the work required on the plantations, the estates and gardens, of the landed proprietors, or perform the work of carriers, whether in the country or in the city. Outside the city they may be seen carrying huge loads on their heads, as happy as possible, not because they are kindly treated, or that their work is light, but because it is their nature to be gay and light-hearted, because they have conceived neither joys nor hopes which may not be gratified at will, nor cherished any ambition beyond their reach, and therefore have not been baffled in their hopes, nor known disappointment. Within the city, negro carriers may be heard at all hours, in couples, engaged in the transportation of clove bags, boxes of merchandise, etc., from store to go down, and from go down to the beach, singing a kind of monotone chant for the encouragement of each other, and for the guiding of their pace as they shuffle through the streets with bare feet. You may recognize these men readily, before long, as old acquaintances, by the consistency with which they sing the tunes they have adopted. Several times during a day I have heard the same couple pass beneath the windows of the consulate, delivering themselves of the same invariable tune and words. Some might possibly deem the songs foolish and silly, but they had a certain attraction for me, and I considered that they were as useful as anything else for the purposes that they were intended. The town of Zanzibar, situate on the south-western shore of the island, contains a population of nearly 100,000 inhabitants. That of the island altogether I would estimate at not more than 200,000 inhabitants, including all races. The greatest number of foreign vessels trading with this port are American, principally from New York and Salem. After the American come the German, then come the French and English. They arrive loaded with American sheeting, brandy, gunpowder, muskets, beads, English cotton, brass wire, chinaware, and other notions, and depart with ivory, gum copal, cloves, hides, cowries, sesamum, pepper, and cocoanut oil. The value of the exports from this port is estimated at $3,000,000, and the imports from all countries at $3,500,000. The Europeans and Americans residing in the town of Zanzibar are either government officials, independent merchants, or agents for a few great mercantile houses in Europe and America. The climate of Zanzibar is not the most agreeable in the world. I have heard Americans and Europeans condemn it most heartily. I have also seen nearly one half of the white colony laid up in one day from sickness. A noxious malaria is exhaled from the shallow inlet of Malagash, and the undrained filth, the garbage, offal, dead mollusks, dead pariah dogs, dead cats, all species of carrion, remains of men and beasts unburied, assist to make Zanzibar a most unhealthy city, and considering that it ought to be most healthy, nature having pointed out to man the means and having assisted him so far, it is most wonderful that the ruling prince does not obey the dictates of reason. The Bay of Zanzibar is in the form of a crescent, and on the southwestern horn of it is built the city. On the east Zanzibar is bounded almost entirely by the Malagash Lagoon, an inlet of the sea. It penetrates to at least 250 yards of the sea behind or south of Shangani Point. Were these 250 yards cut through by a 10-foot ditch, and the inlet deepened slightly, Zanzibar would become an island of itself, and what wonders would it not effect to health and salubrity? I have never heard this suggestion made, but it struck me that the foreign consuls resident at Zanzibar might suggest this work to the Sultan, and so get the credit of having made it as healthy a place to live in as any near the equator. But apropos of this, I remember what Captain Webb, the American consul, told me on my first arrival, when I expressed to him my wonder at the apathy and inertness of men born with the indomitable energy which characterizes Europeans and Americans, of men imbued with the progressive and stirring instincts of the white people, who yet allow themselves to dwindle into pallid phantoms of their kind, into hypochondriacal invalids, into hopeless believers in the deadliness of the climate, with hardly a trace of that daring and invincible spirit which rules the world. "Oh," said Captain Webb, "it is all very well for you to talk about energy, and all that kind of thing, but I assure you that a residence of 4 or 5 years on this island, among such people as are here, would make you feel that it was a hopeless task to resist the influence of the example by which the most energetic spirits are subdued, and to which they must submit in time, sooner or later. We were all terribly energetic when we first came here, and struggled bravely to make things go on as we were accustomed to have them at home, but we have found that we were knocking our heads against granite walls to no purpose whatever. These fellows, the Arabs, the Banyans, and the Hindis, you can't make them go faster by ever so much scolding and praying, and in a very short time you see the folly of fighting against the unconquerable. Be patient, and don't fret. That is my advice, or you won't live long here." There were 3 or 4 intensely busy men, though, at Zanzibar, who were out at all hours of the day. I know one, an American. I fancy I hear the quick pit-pat of his feet on the pavement beneath the consulate. his cheery voice ringing the salutation "Yambo" to every one he met.